I would be shocked were that not the case. I mean, KPN is a serious company, a serious carrier. It's not any better or any worse than any of the other European carriers. I expect that if we look under the lid, we are going to see the same thing time and again, be it Deutsche Telekom, be it any of the other carriers that have used the same approach to dealing with these Chinese vendors. They don't care about national security only to the degree that they are required to by their governments, and governments prioritize getting blockbuster spectrum auction fees in rather than making sure that they had highly secure networks that were price competitive. We warped the system by making it all about how much money you can raise from a spectrum auction, and that was the Achilles heel that the Communist Party of China used to compromise our communications networks in the way that we now see KPN's communications network was compromised.
Which is completely, it's like high-level spying, right? They had unbelievable access to all types of, they even knew what their secret service in Holland who they were tracking, who they were listening to.
This is unprecedented. In the history of espionage, it's unprecedented. Never before in history has this level of data, this level of information flow been available to a potential adversary, to a strategic adversary. Nothing like this existed in World War II, during the Cold War against the Soviet Union. This is not the stuff of dead drops and, clandestine meetings in subway stations. This is having access potentially to every mobile phone call and every piece of data transported over all of the networks, and being able to target individuals at any time that you wanted, right from China. The capability of being able to do that has never before existed. You don't actually have to even have a spy in the country having clandestine meetings and all of that and being tracked and everything else. You can access that data electronically in real time while it's happening. And we've never seen that before. And the thing to remember is with 5G, this could be information from machinery, information from all parts of our economy, healthcare, you name it, cars, anything. This is what we are now flowing over and will be flowing over 5G networks. And to have equipment and technology in there that is susceptible to be influenced and captured by the Communist Party of China is madness.
Well, let's take the UK, for example. They talked about, okay, we're only going to allow Huawei to install 30% of non-essential hardware. Is there a certain level of access they need to get to be able to do these particular things, or?
No, look, there's a lot of nonsense that's talked about, its spin put out by the carriers who will tell politicians and governments, it's not that they're lying to them, but it's they're sort of presenting things in a particular light. So, for example, you hear time and time again people saying, well, we're not going to include Huawei or a Chinese vendor in the core of the 5G network. The core of the network in 5G is much less important than it was in 4G or in 3G, because the computing power, the intelligence, the smarts of the network in 5G is pushed out to the edge in what's called the RAN, the radio access network. So it's much closer to the customer, to the end user device. The reason that is done is to reduce latency and increase speed and the amount of data that these networks can carry. So the intelligence of the network is no longer exclusively or predominantly in the core. It's actually in the RAN and at the edge of the network. So people are using terminology that is from a former generation of the wireless industry, where the wireless industry has changed fundamentally, and so has what the core does. So people say, well, Huawei aren't in the core, but we're only using them for the RAN, the radio access network. That's not good. This is still a much worse situation than having Huawei in, for example, all of the 4G network 10 years ago, having them in part of the 5G network now is worse even than having them in all of the 4G network 10 years ago, because of how much more important these networks now are, how much more data is flowing over them, and how much more our economy and our lives are dependent on these technologies.
Incredible. Declan Ganley, Rivada Networks, thank you so much.
Thank you.